Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Cindy Bertram. Thanks for joining me today on Good Ship Happens. We have a lot of exciting things going on in the cruise industry, and I'll be more about that today. New ships, the continued growth of Port Canaveral, which is great. Port Canaveral, which is an hour away from Orlando, actually has become the number one cruise port, I think, in the United States. It's actually more ships sailing out of Port Canaveral than even Port Miami, which is like the main cruise port for years. When cruising first started, it was always from Port Miami, and then Port Everglades, which is in Fort Lauderdale, started growing like crazy too, building new ship terminals. But then, like Port Canaveral, they're just exploding in a positive way, which is great. And I actually sailed out of Port Canaveral myself a long time ago, back in the 1990s. That was with Premier Cruise Line. They were the official cruise line of Walt Disney World, and my dear business friend Nick Rago, who calls me his coach. He says, I'm your coach, Cindy. Actually was the one who navigated and negotiated the deal for them to become the first official cruise line of Walt Disney World before Disney started on cruise line. And I sailed out of Port Canaveral. It was like an hour away, but it's still beautiful. And you can see beautiful things out there too. Also with Disney, when they started their cruise line, then they sail out of Port Canaveral too, because they did sail on Disney Cruise Lines. Disney Wish the first year they came out, which is great. But once again, we've got some more ships that are going to be sailing out of Port Canaveral. In fact, one was just announced today. With the growth as far as Port Canaveral, Royal Caribbean is going to have their Utopia of the Seas now sailing out of Port Canaveral starting on July of 2024, and should be sailing on shorter Bahama cruises, 3 and 4 nights. Once again, what's good about Port Canaveral is if you want to, you could actually go and spend some time maybe at different theme parks. Disney World, of course, is one. Universal is another one. But once again, two is when you go to Port Canaveral, it's like an hour away. And it's just beautiful to go there, too. And it's not really congested, which is great. But once again, the growth with Port Canaveral is just so exciting. There's another option as far as where you want to sail it from, as far as cruising. As far as new ships, yes, we've got some really fantastic ones coming out this year still. For instance, and this is what I've talked about before, is the Explorer One, which is actually Explorer Journey's first ship, very luxury, high-end. She's actually going to start sailing on her first cruise on July 17th next month out of Europe. Explorer Journeys is actually very luxury, high-end, small ships, and they really like to have people embrace the ocean life, etc. That sounds exciting too. Another one coming up in August this year is actually Norwegian Viva. That is their second Prima class ship, and should be debuting actually on August 19th of this year. Another one, which is a luxury, is Regent Seven Seas. They got their Seven Seas Grandeur coming up this year too, and once again, she's very luxury, high-end, and she'll only have 746 guests on board the ship too, which is great. Another one we've talked about before is the newest Celebrity Ascent ship. That is their fourth Celebrity Edge class ships. She'll be debuting. Her first sailing is going to be November 22nd this year. Something else exciting too is with Carnival Cruise Lines. As mentioned, I think last week I mentioned with the Carnival of Venezia, they actually christened that ship last week, and they had Jay Leno as our godfather. It was the first godmother that Carnival Cruise Line has ever selected, which is great. But once again, with Carnival Jubilee, she's going to be sailing, debuting out of Texas this year on December 23rd, 2023. What's fun about that is Carnival sometimes renames their new ships from past ships, and the Carnival Jubilee is one example. Another one they did last year was on the christening naming ceremony was the Carnival Celebration. The original Carnival Celebration was debuted about 30 years ago. That's when Kathleen Gifford was actually a spokesperson, and she christened the ship. And then last year, they asked her to ask her daughter to be maybe the godmother of that ship. And as the christening was wonderful, so her daughter actually christened the new Carnival Celebration. Something else with Virgin Voyages, once again, there are, for adults only, you have to be 18 years and older. It's pretty much all included, which is great. And what they're doing is their newest ship, the Brilliant Lady, is going to be debuting on December 24th this year. Something else as far as new ships coming out, We have Royal Caribbean, and their Icon of the Seas is scheduled to debut actually this next January 2024. She is actually, I mentioned, she's the biggest ship ever being built, period. And what they do is with cruise ships, when they first start building the ship, they have this coin laying ceremony first. They put a special coin in the area they're building the ship, and then what they do is then later on, as the ship is getting built and it's almost complete, what they do is then they actually do sea trials, which people maybe are not aware of. But the sea trials with Icon Seas, she just completed her sea trials. They do that first to make sure the ship is going to be sailing correctly. Whenever they do sea trials, and once again, it's just a way to get them closer to actually officially launching the ship. In this case, Icon of the Seas is going to actually be debuting later on in January 2024, coming up in about 7 months. So that's really good too, and it's good to share those kinds of things. Something else that's really, I think, important to talk about too is when we talk about traveling. I mean, we went through so many horrible pauses with coronavirus, but what's good too is people, I think, really decided that during this coronavirus messy situation, they want to make sure that they had certain things in the future they want to do. And for some reason, sometimes people were talking about being a revenge travel, which I think is kind of funny. I mean, when I think of traveling, I think about creating pleasure for myself and other people. But when you talk about revenge travel, that was kind of a strange name. But basically, it was when people wanted to travel, they couldn't get out, but they were building their bucket list. But today, what we're seeing more of, which I think is really fantastic, is leisure travel. If you're not familiar with leisure travel, basically it's combining leisure plus travel, and it's half business, half luxury. And one thing that we're seeing now too is with especially travel, including cruise industry too, is they offer high-speed internet on board their ships. There's a company that a lot of cruise lines have been switching over to. It's called Starlink. And what they do is you can actually access the internet on board the ship. So if, for instance, you do want to maybe take a cruise, but then you still do some work too, you can actually still work while you're on board the ship. And it's, once again, the capability of doing business on board if you have to in different times and areas, but then also have some time to also take some leisure time yourself too. So that's a big trend right now, and I'm glad we're getting through that kind of weird term, revenge travel. I think the leisure really is a part of the DNA today as far as travelers, because once again, we learned so much about working from home when coronavirus hit, and now people can work and then relax a little bit, work, relax. It's actually do two different things. So once again, I really like leisure travel, and that's a big hot button right now more than ever. So keep that in mind too, because once again, with the cruise industry, they do have high-speed internet available. Also, if you're going to be taking just a regular trip, you can check and see what's available with the hotels too. That's rather important too. But once again, you see a combination of both, because once again, internet has really come a long way when it comes to cruise lines. I know that when I was taking a cruise a long time ago, I was working with a business friend. He wanted me to help him with his company. And what I did was, at that time, the internet on the cruise ships were kind of so-so. What I did was I took my iPhone with me, and then I went to different places at the different out islands or the islands themselves. And then while I was having lunch at a really fantastic place, I could actually get some work done too from my iPhone because the internet there was better. But now, with cruise lines and their high-speed internet, which is great, you can actually work from on board the ship too and get things done too, and then still take a break. So that's really, I think, important to think about too, because it's good to be able to relax and relax a lot. I think that's important. But once again, there's so many options out there too with cruise lines, and they're growing like crazy. With a lot of new ships coming out. I mentioned 6 or 7 coming out so far, and one more coming out too. Something else that's kind of fun too is when you think about Princess Cruises, what do you think about? Well, I got hooked on the cruise industry a long time ago when I was watching The Love Boat TV series. Yes. And the fun thing is, later on, after I started working for my family's full-service travel agency, retail agency, I went in to increase our cruise sales like crazy, which I did. Started going to conferences, and the fun thing is, later on, Gab McLeod, became like the spokesperson for Princess Cruises, and he actually appeared at several different cruise conferences too. I met him a couple times. But the thing is, he's been gone for about 3 years now. But what they did was Princess Cruises just announced something really, really fun this week. They unveiled their new Princess Perfect Weddings at Sea. Yes. So once again, people don't realize, but once again, with Princess Cruises, for 25 years after hosting the first modern wedding at sea, Princess Cruises just unveiled their exciting new lineup of wedding packages. And they announced this that the TV host and bridal designer Brandy Vernoli is their brand ambassador of love for love and romance. And it's a role that includes a bridal theme cruise in December of this year, which is great, and also developing signature wedding packages exclusive to the Love Boat, which is great. And like I said, the new Princess Perfect Weddings really create unforgettable moments. They offer different packages tailored really to what the couple is wanting to seek unique experiences are. Because people don't realize, but you can actually get married on board a cruise ship. People don't realize that. Also, sometimes if you book in advance, you can also, before you could actually get off the ship and maybe get married at an island, especially in the Caribbean. When you talk about Caribbean, specific more the U.S. Virgin Islands, which are U.S. owned. Also San Juan, Puerto Rico, which is still U.S. owned too. But once again, like I said, 25 years ago is when Princess really started their standard for weddings at sea, and they offer different types of packages and different ranges with different options, just to make sure that every proposal, wedding, and ceremony and renewal vow can be realized, because you can actually renew your vows too on board a cruise ship too. So definitely keep that in mind. It's a way to kind of celebrate when you're sailing. And once again, they've got different types of wedding packages. Okay, and they just announced this actually this week, which is fun to learn more about that too, because once again, I think it'd be wonderful to actually get married on a cruise ship. How fun. And I actually had a friend who did that. It was a great experience for him too, and that's how I got hooked on cruising. It came up accidentally, but he got married on a cruise ship. They've got different types of packages with Princess Cruises, and they're different prices, of course, but they've got, for instance, their symbolic wedding. It's actually a legal wedding, and it includes marriage licenses, and it includes an indoor-outdoor ceremony by the ship's captain. Yes, you can get married by the ship's captain. And they have wedding cake, sparkling wine to toast. They've got a dedicated photographer who can provide memorable prints. They've got a romantic breakfast for the couple itself. They've got stateroom gifts. They've also got a pre-cruise and onboard wedding coordinator, and they've got a keepsake certificate too. Something else they've got too is called a timeless ceremony at sea, and this includes a couple plus up to 8 guests. So if you want to invite someone to come with you, you could do this. And this particular package includes the legal wedding. It includes the marriage license, and it's once again indoor-outdoor ceremony by the ship's captain. Of course, they've got a solo-fied musician during the ceremony. They've got a dedicated photographer. They've got a romantic breakfast for the couple. They've got stateroom gifts, etc. And once again, they actually have the services provided by their pre-cruise and onboard wedding coordinator. And another one they mentioned too was called their timeless wedding at sea. This includes a couple and up to 18 guests. And once again, it's a bit more high in price. Once again, it includes key things too. Still the indoor-outdoor wedding ceremony by the ship's captain, fresh florals, wedding party, wedding cake, sparkling wine toast. They've got the musicians playing, the photographer, different things like that too. So once again, like I said, with the Love Boat, they've really added packages for Princess Proposal at Sea, and also a renewal celebration too, which is really great too. So definitely keep that in mind, because once again, you don't think about where you get married, but once again, you can actually get married on a cruise ship too if you want to, just to explore different packages out there too. But once again, I think it makes sense for Princess Cruises to do that. They've been doing it for 25 years, but once again, to really kind of up it up different levels, as they've been doing this for 25 years, makes a lot of sense. And I think it'd be great too to think about if you are already, married, can actually do a Renew the Love type of a vow renewal on board the cruise ship too. That's another package. And something else too is, I think this is wonderful. If, for instance, you've been dating someone for a long time, you travel together, maybe you're interested in maybe getting married, there's actually another package they just announced. It's called the Princess Perfect Proposal. And it's a secret proposal that's set up for a private indoor-outdoor location. And it's a proposal rose and also includes a rose petal decor. They've got a celebration cake and a pre-cruise and onboard coordinator to help you out too. But I think that's kind of fun. You can actually propose to someone when you're on the Princess Cruise Ship too, and that's a new package they launched too. So definitely keep that in mind because once again, weddings really, I think, a good thing to think about if you've thought about that, and getting married on a cruise ship thing would be wonderful. And cruise lines have been doing this for quite a long time. As mentioned, Princess Cruises have been doing theirs for 25 years, but this takes it to a whole new level. So definitely keep that in mind because once again, when you think about Good Ship Happens, yes, you get married on a cruise ship, which is great to think about too. So that would be good for me to share that today too, because I think that's really exciting too. And yes, I think getting married on a cruise ship when you can see the beautiful oceans, I think is really, really fantastic too. It's another way to really kind of celebrate in different ways too, because these take place on board the cruise ships themselves too. Something else that just came up this week, a little bit different, but we talk about river cruise industry. Besides river cruise lines that are really operating so well in Europe, including AMA Waterways, and AMA means love, but they actually are expanding in different areas, and they're going to be offering some new cruises. But nothing about river cruise lines too is we've got some fantastic river cruise lines that are based in the United States. Two that are really, really fantastic to think about too is sailing on the U.S. rivers. Okay, American Cruise Line has been around for several years. They're family owned, and they actually own their own company that actually builds their ships too. They build smaller ships, of course. When you talk about river cruising in the United States, they're smaller ships. And once again, when cruising first started coming back after the pandemic, I think people felt more comfortable maybe sailing in the U.S., not having to worry about different protocols. I mean, they're all very, very safe, of course, too. But once again, when you talk about river cruising in the United States, they can take you to beautiful places too, and on the rivers, which is great. And that really took off, I think, a lot too. And then, of course, another river cruise line that started about 12 years ago was actually, they called it American Queen Steamboat Company. And then in 2021, they decided to actually rebrand themselves, and they changed their name to American Queen Voyages. And they did a big announcement at a press conference at the Seatrade Cruise Global Conference I was at. And it sounded really good because once again, when you think about steamboats, what are those? Sometimes people equate that with something older. They're not, because they've built new steamboats too. But American Queen Voyages has really expanded a lot. And what they did was in 2019, they actually bought a couple of smaller ships. Okay. And what they did was they decided to bring those in. They decided on some new options for those ships when they had the time to do the planning during the COVID-19 pause. But what they did was they renamed them the Ocean Navigator and Ocean Voyager cruise ships. They were smaller but really beautiful. And what they decided to do was they started offering different cruise ship sailings out of the Great Lakes. Okay, what they did was I got a chance to see one of their ships that was sailing out of Navy Pier in Chicago last year twice. It was really great to see it. But what they decided to do is, after this season is over, what they're going to be doing now is they decided that they want to plan to sell the Ocean Navigator and Ocean Voyager ships. They're still going to continue to sail their sailings through November this year, because knowing what their Great Lakes cruises, they sail during that time period. But then what they're doing is they kept getting feedback from their customers, and they just kind of mentioned the customers were basically giving them feedback that they felt their U.S. river itineraries were exceptional, and they really wanted to make sure they could do this more and more. So once again, Cindy Dwellis, who's the president of American Queen Voyages, mentioned that they had McKinsey do a market survey, and they found out that the participants had the highest brand affinity for American Queen voyages among the U.S. river operators too. So once again, they plan now to focus on updating, improving the river product itself, and have new, of course, partnerships with an elevated culinary program. And their pivot away from the Great Lakes comes back to also another cruise line has really ramped up that too. Viking actually sails 2 different expedition ships there too, and they've doubled their capacity since sending their one ship to the region for the first time in 2022. So once again, I really think it makes more sense that they want to focus on the river cruise line, the river experiences themselves too. And they're going to be doing a series of different deployment changes in next year, 2024, and also 2025 with new routes, which is great. For instance, just some things they updated too recently, just this week, and they shared it, was their line is going to be offering 3 new 3 and 4 day cruises on the lower Mississippi River on their 417 guest American Queen. And it's actually, which is the largest steamboat ever built by American Queen Voyages. Also, American Queen Voyage is going to bring back a 16-day voyage from Minnesota to the Gulf of Mexico on a Mississippi River sailing that will include intricate locks and dams and the birthplace of jazz and country music. Something else they just announced too was their American Countess is going to sail on a new experiential voyage that's bourbon themed, and it's going to be featuring food and spirits from experts, including Diggy Brennan. He's actually a chef, owner of the Bourbon House in New Orleans. And this 245 guest ship is going to sail the Ohio, Tennessee, and Cumberland rivers for its American Heartland cruises too. Also, their 221 guest American Empress is going to sail on new wine-themed cruises too, through the Pacific Northwest on the Snake and Columbia rivers. And once again, depending on the voyages, guests are going to have access to a salmon excursion, which I think would be fun, and bring their catch back to the boat to be cleaned and cooked. So it'd be kind of fun, I think, to be able to actually maybe go fishing for salmon and bring it back and then have it served to you too, which is great. It's just the experiential component to which I think is so important now, because once again, people love experiences. It's not just going on a ship and relaxing, doing nothing. I think people really like that engagement, doing fun things like that too. So definitely keep that in mind too. It's kind of a fun twist too. Also, their sailings in Alaska and the British Columbia will continue through 2024 on the Ocean Victory expedition ship. And then the cruises will include expeditions on a Zodiac and kayak led by naturalists and also field guides, which is in cooperation with the California Polytechnic State University. Once again, too, with American Queen Voyages, they did decide, just announced, they want to focus back on river cruising, and they're going to be selling off those 2 other smaller ships that they'd use for different things, including Great Lakes cruises. Made some changes, once again, too. It just kind of goes back to, I think, what they're doing, too, is it's good to really get feedback from your guests and clients and see what they like, because once again, you want to make sure they come back and adapt to what their needs are too. So it makes a lot of sense now more than ever. I mean, I got a chance to see their one ship sail on Navy Pier twice last year, once in May and once in August. It was great to see the ship, but once again, it goes back to, we really think doing the surveys, finding out what people really, really want to experience, and then focusing on that so you get people come back, and then you can really build that loyalty and then expand in different ways too. And the culinary aspect, I think, is very important too, because once again, they've also partnered with Chef Regina Charbonneau. She's fantastic, and she is one of their culinary experts. Fantastic person. I wrote about her when they first started, which is great, and she'll offer different experiences on board the ships too, which is great too. Any questions for me, Mark, or not right now? Because we have a lot going on right now too.
There's a lot going on. I actually had a treat for you, actually 2 treats, because I just learned something as you were talking about Port Canaveral and all in that space. And one of the things that I found out, which I did not know until I was listening to you talk and did a little bit of research and all along those lines, is that there is actually a webcam at Port Canaveral. So we're actually going to see what's happening at Port Canaveral right now. There might not be much of anything, but we're going to find out because you can literally go there because it's located at Fish Lips Waterfront Bar and Grill, and you can click on the webcam and find out what is going on and all in that space. So let's see what's happening on the webcam from Port Canaveral at this particular moment and all along those lines. Right now, it just looks like a very scenic day, and of course, there are some cruise ships there and all in that space, but you can definitely see that there are people watching. It looks like there's about 140 people that are watching the Port Canaveral webcam. You can watch other webcams as well, but there is a webcam there at Port Canaveral. There's one at Port Everglades and a number of other places that are out there. So we can go over to the different ports and see what they are looking at. So we'll actually switch to the Port Everglades one and see if there's anything going on in that space and all along those lines. So folks can go and they can watch these webcams and see what is happening for some trips that maybe they are thinking about taking and all along those lines. So you can definitely have the webcam view and in that space. So like I said, I was not even aware that Port Canaveral had a webcam until I was checking that out and saw that they had a webcam that you can view to see what might be going on, even where your friends may be taking on in their cruises. And last but not least, because I know that you are a romantic at heart in some ways and all along those lines, and I heard you talking about the weddings and all in that space. So guess what, Cindy? I found a wedding from last year back in November, and it is Annie and Brian, and they were renewing their vows on a cruise. So this is about a 6-minute video where we can learn about their renewing of their vows and how they did it on the cruise that they were part of. So are you excited, and are you looking as a romantic in heart to hear about this particular thing that is going on? So I'll stop sharing the webcam and all in that space, but let's check out this romantic couple and all along those lines and check this out. So like I said, Cindy's a romantic, so am I. So let's watch Annie and Brian as they prepare and did this. I believe it was in November, right before Thanksgiving, but let's check it out.
A marriage is a little bit like having a wedding on board the Harmony of the Seas. Initially, there's a lot of excitement. Then there's a lot of confusion. You feel maybe some days a little lost, a little bit like, where am I going? What should I be doing? And then we arrive where we should be, together.
I never believed that a fairy tale romance story could ever happen until I had the privilege to love you. And here we are, starting a new chapter of our fairy tale in front of our beloved friends and family on a Royal Caribbean cruise where we met. From the day we met, I could feel your energy radiate, and you gave me butterflies in my stomach.
On that cruise, we hung out almost every night, and later on I found out she was trying to avoid me.
I tried so hard to avoid you because I thought you were on the cruise with a wife and kid. Thank goodness we cleared that up.
But no matter where she turned, no matter what elevator she took, I was there. But I wasn't following her, I promise.
The universe kept pulling us together. You are my sunshine, my best friend, my forever person, and the love of my life. Whether we're cruising around across the sea, discovering all the food around the world, or being literal potatoes at home, I know every day is the best adventure with you by my side. I love you more every day. You make my soul complete, and I can't wait to write the next chapter of our fairy tale with you.
Every mountain and swim every ocean,
Just to be with you and fix what I've broken.
oh, 'cause I need you to see that you are the reason.
Today, you choose each other, and it's not about just today. Wake up every day choosing each other. But if you choose each other every day, it's going to be amazing. Brian, will you continue to have Annie as your wedded spouse and continue to be committed to this loving marriage?
I do.
Annie, will you continue to have Brian as your wedded spouse and continue to be committed to this loving marriage?
I do.
I've always wanted to say this next part. By the power invested in me, and in land and in sea, I now pronounce you husband and wife again. You may kiss the bride.
I'd climb every mountain
And swim every ocean.
just to be with you and fix what I've broken. 'Cause I need you to see that you are the reason.
I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. Baby, I'ma have the best freaking night of my life. And wherever it takes me, I'm down for the ride. Baby, don't you know I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. 'Cause I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. Baby, I'ma have the best freaking night of my life. And wherever it takes me, I'm down for the ride. Baby, don't you know I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. Don't you know I'm good? Yeah, I'm feeling alright. So I just let it go, let it go. Oh na 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 na, no I don't care no more, care no more. Oh na 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 na, so come on, let me know, let me know. Put your hands up, na na na, no baby, nothing's gonna stop us tonight. 'Cause I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. Baby, I'ma have the best freaking night of my life. And wherever it takes me, I'm down for the ride. Baby, don't you know I'm good? Yeah, I'm feeling alright.
Well, that was Annie and Brian, and they were renewing their vows. Wasn't that romantic? Didn't you just enjoy that? And all in that space, I found that and thought of you and thought you might enjoy that particular video.
Yes, because once again, when you're talking about cruise ships, Royal Caribbean, they mentioned they got married in Royal Caribbean, but Royal Caribbean, I have been on several other ships besides sailing on them, and a lot of them do have wedding chapels on board, which is great. So once again, you can coordinate it through the cruise line. If you're doing with the travel advisor, the travel advisor can help you too. But once again, it's really good to kind of think about that too, because once again, different packages. This friend of mine got remarried on Royal Caribbean. Actually had family come with him too. He was married before, got remarried, but once again, it was kind of fun to hear about his experiences. It's a long time ago. Once again, it's something to consider too if you're thinking about doing something kind of fun. And I mean, something else that comes up too is you can still get married on different islands too. I know Sandals is big about that too, Sandals Resorts. But I really think the cruise lines really bring a new dimension to that too, because there's so many things you can do on board the ship too, and just have fun with it too. So I mean, to me, well, wouldn't be better to get married on a cruise ship? I think that'd be wonderful.
That sounds like that would be wonderful, having
Well,
done the
Then also,
marriage. Yeah, so,
you could have a little cake on the ocean too.
you know what? Cake on the
By
ocean.
the ocean, cake by the ocean, yes.
Yeah, they were having fun, having a dance party in the whole 9 yards. So
Oh, that's
definitely sounds like
wonderful.
it could be a wonderful time. You had mentioned earlier about some of the ships that had rolled out, and I did find something about those as well. So I did see that there is a 1 minute video about Queen Anne rolling out last month, I believe it was, and also Queen Mary II leaving in London, and that's about a 3-minute video. So we'll switch things, but if you like it, I'll definitely want to show Cunard's Queen Anne as well as
Yes.
the Queen Mary. So let's check out both of these videos.
It's been an absolute honor to witness the transformation of this beautiful ship. Today's float-out ceremony is a significant milestone in the development of Queen Anne.
1 year to go, and it might seem far away, but 1 year goes so incredibly fast.
The work that has gone into this ship is absolutely extraordinary. I can't wait to see the vision come together in the year ahead as the finer details of the guest areas and the internal parts of the ship come to life.
We have so much to offer. I can't wait to present Queen Anne to our guests, and it will be such an honor to be captain of this beautiful ship.
Roll out in about a year. This is one that actually rolled out recently and rolled out in, I believe, England. But let's check out about the Queen Mary.
beautiful. You know,
It was
Cunard Line is
beautiful.
very high in luxury, and once again, too, they've been around for several years. One of the oldest cruise lines around too, but once again, they provide different things too, which is great. So it's good to see that too.
It was really good to see that. I saw that they had fireworks and everything. I know we talk about good ship happens and everything, but there can be some rough weather. I know we've been having rough weather, even though don't think it's rained today, but it did rain several days in the past. And sometimes that rough weather can impact the cruise ships. And I know that there was a report, I think, on ABC about a ship that got hammered by some of that weather about 3 weeks ago or something along those lines. So I'm going to bring up one of those clips that talks about what went on in that particular case. And maybe we could talk about some of the weather dealings that they have as well. But I was going to play this clip that came after the storms hit South Carolina as the cruise was dealing on that part of the world. And it is from one of the major networks. But let's check out what they were reporting in this particular case.
Next, the frightening end to a holiday cruise. Carnival's Sunshine was heading back to Charleston, South Carolina, when it sailed right into a storm. Choppy seas and whitecap waves battering the ship for hours. Passengers recording water dripping from the ceiling of their rooms and soggy carpets in the hallways. Some claiming they heard nothing from the captain or the crew for hours. Here's ABC's Victor Oquendo.
Tonight, dramatic video showing the Carnival cruise ship Sunshine battling hurricane-force winds. The 14-deck, 900-foot-long ship sailing straight into a dangerous storm Friday night. Those winds kicking up enormous waves, sending sea spray even to the upper decks, and hissing past portholes. Whitecaps as far as the eye could see.
I was fully prepared that we were going to hear that call over the loudspeaker to abandon ship.
Salt water streaming into cabins.
Oh, God.
Passengers left to slosh through waterlogged halls. The Sunshine attempting to return from the Bahamas to its Charleston, South Carolina port. Among the nearly 3,000 passengers and 1,000 crew members were A.J. Whited and his fiancée Tracy trying to celebrate their engagement.
And it was shaking us so violently, like we couldn't do anything. We didn't eat any restaurants. We had no relaxation, nothing at all.
Please take extra precaution by holding handrails when possible.
After warning the ship was heading into a storm, vacationers say the crew left them for hours without an update.
After the weather got really bad, nobody reached out. There was silence over the intercom system. Nobody was on the intercom, the captain, the cruise director, or anyone.
And we just got this in from the ship's captain saying that they made several announcements about the weather and the delay in returning to Charleston, but added that some of the worst weather occurred in the overnight hours when announcements are not typically made. Thankfully, there were only minor injuries here. Whit.
Certainly a frightening scene, though. Victor, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here.
Yeah, that can happen sometimes that you can get those announcements. I know that sometimes they don't make them at night as much as they do in the day and everything, but that is something that you have to consider. And I do know that sometimes there can be some negative weather, even though we want it to be sunshine and brightness at all cruises, but you can run across some weathers. And matter of fact, I think we're getting ready to head into, I think we're in the midst of hurricane season right now and all in that space. So there might be times that people are going there in cruises and they are hopefully getting the updates that they need from the cruises. And I do know that sometimes the cruises will have satellites and other things and radars that are studying the storms that will sometimes even divert the travel in order to avoid being caught in those. But sometimes the weather is unpredictable and you can't always navigate as much as you would like.
Right, because some points to come up too is, some that came up because normally what cruise lines do, and they can track things like crazy now more than ever.
Right.
Usually they will actually avoid the storms. I had that happen myself. I was doing a cruise a long time ago, probably in the late 1990s, and we're supposed to be doing, I think, an Eastern Caribbean cruise, and there was a bad storm, so we actually did Western Caribbean cruise. So they rerouted us. And with hurricane season, what people might not be aware of, hurricane season actually goes from, I think, maybe June, maybe end of
May or June until I think October.
June, yes, June till maybe October, November. And so that's why I really prefer to cruise maybe end of November myself to be safe. But the point is, usually with cruise lines, they have really high-tech tracking systems. I'm surprised it came up. I apologize, but they have high tracking systems now. They can actually route different areas to avoid the storms because they do that. In fact, a good example is when that one hurricane came up through the Caribbean. Which one it was, I can't remember what it was. But the thing is, they actually cancel cruises and just took those ships out to see different places. I don't know if it was Katrina, it was another hurricane, it was really, really bad, but they actually, then later on, they actually got requests to rescue people. One example was Norwegian Cruise Line. One of the ships is going to be sailing to Cuba at the time. That's when you could go to Cuba. Now they've changed things, but what they do is they cancel the cruise. They get the ship out in a safe place on the ocean. They got this emergency request because people had gone through a hurricane in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. People were at the airport kind of stranded. What they did was Norwegian Cruise Line actually took that ship over to Virgin Islands, St. Thomas. They dropped off supplies because, once again, the cruise ship was empty. They had food supplies like crazy, and they actually picked up at least 1,200 guests, put them on that ship from St. Thomas Airport, brought them back to Miami.
Well,
they did. I can't remember what hurricane it was, but it was fantastic they did that. But once again, usually cruise lines have technology to get out of the storms if they can. Be very, very
yeah, they definitely do that. I was going to bring up something else talking about technology advancing, and I don't know how you feel about this, but there is a cruise out there. I think it's called Quantum of the Sea. This is actually a little bit longer than 10 minutes, but I'm going to bring it up because apparently they have a cruise ship that actually has a robot. So maybe your bartender may be a robot. It also has other fun things that are part of the cruise ship as well. So as we're getting to head out, I believe this video that might be closer to 10 minutes into some of the more positive news of the cruise industry and all along those lines. But I think this is a definite fun story that folks may enjoy hearing about it. But this is the technological cruise ship that is out there, and they say it is the most technologically advanced cruise ship in the world. So let's check this out and see what this cruise ship is all about, and maybe we'll see the robots. I don't know if I'm ready for a robot bartender, but hey, they're out there and they're robot restaurant workers as well. But let's check out how they are dealing with this in the cruise industry.
It's called Quantum of the Seas, and the 5-year project to build it had one explicit goal: to create the most advanced, most impressive, most insanely futuristic cruise ship ever. Cruises are a battered industry with a reputation for only catering to retirees with gray hair and an unquenchable thirst for shuffleboard and bingo. But Royal Caribbean, the company behind Quantum of the Seas, has other ideas. It thinks it can build a cruise ship for a new, connected generation. Welcome to the cruise of the future. The most important thing about Quantum of the Seas, the place Royal Caribbean started, isn't the Xbox Arcade or the Jamie Oliver restaurant. It's the Wi-Fi. That's what Chief Information Officer Bill Martin's been thinking about for 5 years.
The game was over in terms of the largest. So that's not the game anymore. What we want is technological advancement. We want the most energy efficient ship on the planet. We're building an infrastructure, a foundation, a base, if you will, that allows the guest to experience the vacation in a much more seamless way. Whether that be the cruise planner in advance, whether that be getting on the ship right away, being online and sharing with friends because that's what you're used to doing, getting into a dining restaurant, when you don't have a reservation. All of these things just add to the experience and make it that much easier.
One of the things I think about with this boat is getting new people, and that seems like what people are talking about, people who might not otherwise think about cruises as an option for vacation. So is that I assume that's one big piece of it.
That millennial generation doesn't know what it's like to be disconnected. They share everything. They want to be online. So on board the ship, we have 3 antennas, and one is tracking across the sky, the closest satellite that is currently overhead. And about every hour, we switch. We do a hop. We refer to it as fiber from the sky. And because it's a concentrated beam, we're getting more than 600 megabits of capacity.
Wow.
In our industry, we have always had to overcharge for internet access because we had so little capacity and so much demand that we had to find a way to manage that demand down.
So you have to price people out.
So we have to price it out.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. But now we can charge what a hotel charges. I was in the North Star 2 days ago. There were 3 people holding their phone up, talking to someone back home, FaceTiming.
Wow.
And this is, for me, this is the coup de grace of the broadband access.
I'm particularly curious about the virtual balconies, which seem like, to me, one of those things that somebody would bring up in a meeting at the very beginning of the process, and somebody would go, that'll never work, and then you just never even try it.
We got the idea of an 80-inch high-definition screen, tilted up on its side, put it in a false wall, put some curtains around it, and stitch in it on its way to the cabin, the balcony railing positioned just right with the glass and the floor of the balcony. The key to making it work, it's about the motion.
Oh, interesting.
Because ships move. And if what you're looking at doesn't match the motion you're feeling, it doesn't work. But you can't do anything else with it. Because if you do anything else on that screen, you lose the illusion.
For Royal Caribbean to be able to offer a week-long cruise in which you'll never be out of touch is a big deal. If Bill Martin did it right, passengers are going to have all sorts of new free time on this ship. But they're on a ship. What are they supposed to do? On Quantum of the Seas, there are hundreds of answers to that question. The longest lines on the ship during our cruise were for the North Star, a little bulb of a room that gets lifted 300 feet above sea level, then casually swings out over the water. It's more of an observation deck than a ride, but the views are outrageous. There's also no other cruise ship in the world that lets you skydive in a wind tunnel. That's what Ripcord by iFly lets you do on the 15th deck of Quantum of the Seas. As it's done many times before, Royal Caribbean took something that's cool on land and made it insane on a ship. So I put on a big blue suit that really made me look very cool, put on earplugs and goggles, and got into a chute with 75-mile-per-hour winds and incredible ocean views. I would have taken a selfie, but then I would have crashed into something and probably died. This whole ship is beautiful. It's new and it's shiny. There are restaurants, shops, a basketball court, a big pink bear named Felicia. One attraction in particular, though, had everyone talking and taking selfies. It was the Bionic Bar. Bars are obviously important to a cruise, but the Bionic Bar has a lot more going on than just liquor service. It started as a project at MIT with this man, Michael Lewis, and a team of people who actually weren't thinking about alcohol at all.
The initial conception of the project wasn't necessarily let's make a bar. Correct, right?
So the group does work in how emerging technologies change everyday life. So the point of doing this was to introduce industrial manufacturing to the masses. You basically go to a digital device and create something in the digital world that comes to life in the material world. It's more like a 3D printer than like anything to do with a bar.
So you could have done anything, but you picked alcohol because everybody likes alcohol.
Basically, yep. These same kinds of robots are the ones that design cars in factories.
So how do you go about taking those robots and turning them into something that can like shake and pour you drinks?
The robots have very refined motions. These particular ones have 1 millimeter degree of accuracy for motion. And they're done in all kinds of environments, upside down, sideways. One element of their motion is based on the motions of Roberto Bolle. He's one of the world's leading ballet dancers. We recorded his motion, and that motion has been programmed into the robotic arms. It gives them more of a human fluidity to the motion. There's a Tom Cruise cocktail to the shake.
So there's more to this than just the robots. Walk me through sort of the whole story of the process here.
So the process begins on a tablet. If you scan your RFID, would you like to do that?
Yeah, I'll do it.
So it first asks for your birth year. This is both to verify your age, being over 21, and also to authenticate who you are in case someone were to steal your ID badge. You couldn't just order a drink or anything else on the ship as you. And there's two options. You can choose from a preset menu or create your own drink.
Let's choose one. We're gonna have a Cosmo. I'm into it.
So you add to cart.
Okay.
Then you order. So this sends it into the network. The robots retrieve the order, tell you your waiting time. The robots know how to assemble the ingredients for the drink. They shake or stir per your request. There are 4 conveyor belts, and there's a display that shows both where you are in the queue and which drink is being made. You tap your RFID to which conveyor you're on, and the drink comes out to you.
What have you learned from being part of this whole process?
One is that the future really is here. As we go more into the 21st century, this sort of technology is becoming more and more commonplace. Things that we saw in the Jetsons decades ago now are commonplace in the real world.
So you're saying I will have one of these in my living room someday?
It's a campaign promise.
Yes, that's what I like to hear. Here's where Quantum of the Seas gets really crazy. The robot bar isn't even the most futuristic thing about this ship. That distinction belongs to 270, a 2-story room at the aft of the ship that kind of defies description. Royal Caribbean's VP of Entertainment is Nick Weir, and he's been working on 270 since he started at the company. It has everything.
What's the sort of grand vision for this room?
So 270 is designed to be the ultimate multi-purpose venue. By day, it is a living room, but inside that we have all this theatricality like robotic animated entertainment. This image right now behind us is made up of 18 images and they're all overlapped, and you get one big, large shot. These 18 projectors need to be controlled by one central brain, and that's what the Coolux does. We can also open the whole thing up and look at the view of the Atlantic. That's also pretty cool.
What was the goal with the robots? Like, you started and you're like, we want to build a robot thing.
Well, I mean, the idea actually came from, believe it or not, the people who make our propellers. Somewhere in some bar in some town, a conversation was had between people who build our ships and ABB, and they said, we've got this idea for robotics that we can put animation on so that they move. You know, a robot normally goes from A to B as fast as it can. What these robots do is they see 30 frames of animation. So we use the same program that DreamWorks use, Maya. And so when a robot moves in a second, it actually has 30 moves in a second.
Wow, okay.
And so you get this organic flow.
Is there anything you could like learn from or lean on to get inspiration for this? Or were you just really kind of inventing it at every step?
Inventing it at every step. So normally your task is to do it. And in this case, you've got to create the science for getting it done first. So we had to figure out the whole thing. How do you move a robot in 3D? How do you put a payload on it that's a video screen? And then on top of the screen, you put custom content. So the idea is when you move the robot this way, you create content that's also moving, and that creates the illusion of this fluid motion. This theater is closer to NASA than Broadway. By using the robotics and the high definition screen, we're going to try and create an experience that's pretty much the same as live.
Yeah.
Or better.
Wow. That's a big goal.
Why not? The holy grail is, can we have a room full of people listening and dancing to an orchestra that aren't actually on board? And you know, that's kind of the beginning of a whole new world.
I've only been on a cruise once before, a few years ago. It was cold and windy, and there really wasn't anything to do except go to the casino and lose at blackjack while drinking overpriced beer. Quantum of the Seas isn't like that. We were on the ship for 2 full days and hardly even scratched the surface of what there is to do. It's like a mall and a 5-star hotel all in one, except everything's moving a little all the time and the rooms are really small. But none of that really matters because you're not going to be spending any time in your room while you're on Quantum of the Seas. You are going to be skydiving.
Why?
Now they do. In fact, funny thing too is I've been on some Royal Caribbean ships. They have the robotic bar.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of funny that they do that, but once again, they do all the checking too, which is great. Didn't really use it, but took pictures. It's really kind of cool how they have the robots actually making the drinks, and they actually get the drinks correct.
Yeah,
it's like they're smarter than humans, but it's really fun to see that. First time I saw it was on Symphony of the Seas to do a tour while in between another cruise I was taking. I got my friend on board the Symphony of the Seas to see it because he hadn't been on it before. And I thought, let's go. I was able to get a guest pass for the day because we had 2 back-to-back cruises. And it was really kind of fun to kind of walk through different things too. And then also when I was sailing on my cruise last year, Lord of the Seas, they did have a robotic bar too. I didn't really experience it. There's so many different options too. It's kind of funny how technology is really ramped up in different ways too. So
no doubt. Well, I was definitely glad to share the wedding and the technology, not so much the storm story,
right.
But the rest of the stuff was very much a good ship happening. I'm gonna bounce off and let you do your closeout and all, but right. I definitely thought that those were great videos, and I hope folks enjoyed those conversations.
Yes. But great information too, because once again, I like to share positive stories. I'm so sorry about that situation that came up with the Carnival ship. Once again, usually when I've been on cruise ships myself in the past, they have technology reroute the ships. So I'm sorry that came up too. It doesn't come up a lot, but it's good to kind of know in advance too. And once again, if you're worried, then once again, maybe avoiding sailing during hurricane season, which starts in June, ends end of October, the first part of November, maybe just stay clear of maybe taking cruise during that time period because with hurricanes, they come up. And I know that this year they've had some storms already, but once again, it goes back to some things you could just consider when you are thinking about taking a cruise. Something else that came up too with Quantum of Seas, she was built in 2014, and they usually pick a really wonderful godmother. In this case, the godmother of the Quantum of Seas was actually Kristen Chenoweth too, which is great. So once again, we've had 2 cruise lines that actually selected godfathers. Carnival Cruise Line was one. They had Jay Leno christen their ship last week. And prior to that, Norwegian Cruise Line actually had a godfather christen one of their ships, Pitbull, the artist singer, which is great. But once again, it's good to kind of share stories like that too, to keep in mind what's going on, because there are still a lot of positives going on too. And one thing I'm still waiting to share more about too is the newest celebrity cruise ship. It's their 4th Edge class ship, and she's going to be debut. I mentioned it earlier in the fall, and they just announced some wonderful things as far as some dining and entertainment tweaks that they're doing. And what they're doing is it's going to be a twin sister, primarily the Celebrity Beyond ship with a few tweaks. But once again, they're redoing some things as far as dining. Once again, this ship will have their 4 complimentary main dining options, each with a signature menu and rotating nightly dishes. And the Cosmopolitan restaurant has been redesigned and is inspired by the culture of Champagne. And also they've got their clean cuisine restaurant, which is exclusive to the Aqua class guests. And they've also got Le Petit Chef dinner, which is going to be offering a new animation and menu to match. And then the Eden restaurant will actually have a plant-based menu too. And once again, they've got beautiful martini bars. That's fantastic. But they're offering some new tweaks on the ship too. And Venue Entertainment, which is coming up too. Also, they've got 3 new productions that will be shown in their theater. And they've got new interactive digital experiences and shows in the club. Also, some new engaging immersive shows in Eden Bar and the restaurant. And once again, this is the cruise line that actually is having the 2 co-captains, which are brothers. We've mentioned it before, shown the videos of them. But some returning signature places on board Celebrity Ascent will be the Magic Carpet Cantilevered Lounge, which is gorgeous. I was actually on Celebrity Edge when she came out, their christening. And they've got the Rooftop Garden, which is gorgeous. Beautiful views to see. You have dining options too, just snacks and things too. And as mentioned with the Celebrity Ascent, she's going to debut this November. And she's going to be operating cruises from Port Everglades from this December through April. And then the ship will be actually heading to the Mediterranean, where she'll be offering a summer of cruises to Greece, Italy, Turkey, Spain, and France as well. So definitely keep that in mind too, because once again, it's their 4th Edge class ship, but beautiful and just a beautiful ship. I love Celebrity Cruises too. They've been growing like crazy, which is great too, and seeing what they're going to be doing later on too. So once again, we've covered a lot today. But as mentioned, I like sharing positive stories about things going on in the cruise industry, plus updates, what they're doing, the safety protocols, even as far as with the LNG, liquefied natural gas, which I'll talk about more maybe in the next couple weeks. It's good to see what cruise lines are doing to really kind of hit this zero LNG level by 2050. And some cruise lines are really ramping up more than faster than anything else too. So we'll talk about that more next week in my show, Good Ship Happens. Once again, thanks for joining me today. As always, like to share the positive, true stories, what's going on in the travel cruise industry, because once again, it's good to share Good Ship Happens. Until next week.
Yes. Good Ship definitely happens. And I thought we'd close it out with the commercial once you give your punchline with those brothers. So that's how I'm going to let you know. We'll close out with the brothers and all that.
Yes.
Space that I'm going to pop
I want to be on that ship. I want to meet them sometime too. Sounds great.
I am thrilled to be here today to announce the captain of Celebrity Ascent, the Amazing Edge series. They bring their own spirit and energy to the ship and our crew. And so I would like to eliminate all the suspense and announce that the captain of Celebrity Ascent is Captain Kafajis. Oh, did I forget to say there are 2 of them? For the first time ever, Celebrity Cruises has 2 captains. So gentlemen, I happen to know you both really, really well. We've worked together for 15 or 16 years. And a lot of our guests have sailed with you, and some of them know a little bit about you. But they nor I know a lot about you. So let's roll video and learn about your amazing lives.
My name is Dimitrios Kafajis. I am from Port of Athens, Piraeus, in Greece. I graduated the Captain's Academy of Syros, and I am a captain with Celebrity Cruises for the last 19 years. 33 years altogether at sea with Celebrity Cruises. My personal milestone and best moment was when I became a captain at the age of 36, being by then the youngest and by far the funniest captain on the fleet, only to live enough to have my brother breaking this record at the age of 34. Bless you, Tassos. I will never forget you for this. My relationship with my brother can be described as father-son relationship and not brothers, since we have 11 years difference with Tassos. I know my pretty face fool you, but there are 11 years difference. When I first heard that I was going to be the captain of the Ascent, and together with my brother, two brothers to start a ship for the company we love. My name is Tassos Kafetsis, and I'm a captain on board Celebrity Cruises. The reason I came to the maritime industry is because of my brother. He's my role model. I was so influenced by him, so I applied for Celebrity Cruises that my brother was working already. And I joined Celebrity Century back in 1998, once it was brand new. And I moved on, and 25 years later, here I am as a captain. Since we became a captain, we didn't have the opportunity to work together, and we're always saying how fun it would be if we could do a contract together, even as captains. Now, to do that together with an opening of the newest vessel of Celebrity Cruises is like a dream come true. When he first became a captain, I gave him a Mont Blanc pen and a Warren bead with a cross and an evil eye, and I said to him, have it in your pocket, and when you think that you are helpless, just put your hand in your pocket, rub it, and it's gonna be there. You mean this one? That's you? Yep. Him. I would say that I might be the prototype, but he is the newer, better version. Captain 2.0, if I may say. He changed the way captains interact with their guests and the crew. He opened up a big window for all the captains to follow.
Not only congratulations, but thank you. It's such a pleasure and an honor to work with both of you every day, and I can't wait to be on the stage with you on Celebrity Ascent.
Yes.
I bet, knowing the two of you, you are going to have a lot of fun with the guests.
When we both would be dressed up as captains on the ship, I will go talk to them first, and then I claim that I had to go, leave, and Tassos come back and carry on what I started and see if they're going to pick it up. And I guarantee
Are they going to get a prize or something if they do pick it up?
They're going to get a dinner with the captain.
Oh, how fun. There you
with
go.
this captain.
With that captain.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard. This is your captain, Captain Kafetsis of the Celebrity Ascent. No. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard. This is your captain, Captain Kafetsis